matter was on the government's proposed ban on the use of foreign currency for local financial transactions, and this was also ruled, admissible, and the Minister of Finance and National Planning was directed to issue a ministerial statement to the House, and that the ministerial statement be rendered on Thursday, July 11th, 2024.
So those were the urgent matters without notice that were considered yesterday, and after that the House considered questions for oral answer numbers 381 and 382, understanding order number 82.
And there was a report that was moved by Dr. Shitalu Chilufya, Mansa Central Member of Parliament, in which he urged the House to adopt the report of the Committee on Energy, Water Development and Tourism on the implementation of monthly fuel prices reviews in Zambia for the third session of the 13th National Assembly, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, 3rd July 2024. And of course, this motion was seconded by Lamek Hamwata Pemba, Member of Parliament, and the matter was resolved in the affirmative, and the report was adopted.
So after consideration of that report, the Matrimonial Causes Bill, National Assembly Bill number 5 of 2024 was considered in committee, and the bill was reported without amendments, and it will be read the third time today. Pauline?
And after that, the House considered a report. There was a motion that was moved by the Minister of Finance and National Planning. That was actually, he moved the motion on Friday, 5th July 2024, and this was that the House, he did present the supplementary budget of the expenditure number 1 of 2024, and then the House is expected to resolve into committee today to discuss this supplementary budget that was moved by the Minister of Finance and National Planning. And so after this matter, the House adjourned accordingly at 16:40 hours. And just now we have a look at what is expected on the business of today in the House.
All right, and so we do expect a business to resume at 14:30 hours with some announcements, if there will be any, and urgent matters without notice, if there will be any. We do expect the Minister of Health, Honorable Sylvia Masebo, to make a ministerial statement on the implementation of the National Health Insurance Scheme.
And after that, we expect a Member of Parliament, Mr. Chancellor, who is expected to move a motion in which he seeks the House to adopt the report of the Planning and Budgeting Committee on the consideration of the 2024 Annual Borrowing Plan Amendment for the third session of the 13th National Assembly, laid on the table of the House on Friday, 5th July 2024.
And after that, the House will consider 2 government bills, one coming up at second reading stage, and the other one will be coming up at third reading stage. And so the Lands Tribunal Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 6 of 2024, will be considered at second reading stage.
And then we have the Matrimonial Causes Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 5 of 2024, to be considered at third reading stage. And thereafter, the House is expected to resolve into Committee of Supply, and commencement of committee work on the supplementary estimates of expenditure number 1 of 2024 is expected to start today, and this was presented by the Minister of Finance and National Planning, Dr. Stubeko Msokotwane, on Friday, 5th July 2024. So that is what is expected to be considered on the floor of the House today, which is Wednesday, 10th July 2024.
All right, so those are live pictures. Members of Parliament are settling in and waiting for the Speaker's procession to make its way into the chamber. And so do stay tuned right here as we wait for the Speaker's procession. Good afternoon.
Honorable members of Parliament, Madam Speaker.
King of Zambia, proud and free, land of faith and joy in unity, victors in the struggle for our rights. We want freedom side, oh, one, strong and free. Africa is our own motherland, passion will not let by those who blend. Let us all our people join as one, brothers under the sun, oh, one, strong and free. One land and one nation is our cry. Dignity and peace in Zambia's sky. Like a noble eagle in its flight, Zambia, praise to thee, oh, one, strong and free. Praise be to God, praise be, bless our great Zambia, Zambia, remain we stand under the flag of our land, Zambia, praise to thee, oh, one, strong and free.
Prayer. Almighty God, who in your infinite wisdom and providential goodness has appointed the offices of leaders and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of the people, we beseech you to consider with your abundant favor us, your servants, whom you have been pleased to call to the performance of such important responsibilities in this land. Let your blessing descend upon us here in Parliament assembled, and grant that we may, as in your presence, treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation, in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country, and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. Amen. Honorable members, I have two announcements to make. The first announcement is that, honorable members, I wish to recognize the presence in the public gallery of pupils and teachers from St. Columbus Presbyterian School in Rodspark, Lusaka District. On behalf of the National Assembly of Zambia, I warmly welcome our visitors in our midst. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. You may take your seat. I was looking at the numbers. The next announcement, honorable members, I wish to recognize the presence in the public gallery of pupils and teachers from Wisdom Wood School in Chalala, Lusaka District. On behalf of the National Assembly, I wish to welcome our visitors in our midst. I thank you. You may take your seats. We go to the next item on the order paper, which is urgent matters without notice. The Honorable Minister of Agriculture, you have an urgent matter of... Or is it a point of order?
Yes.
A point of order.
Yes, a point of order. If not, it will be an urgent matter.
Okay, then let's start with a point of order before we go to the Honorable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Order, honorable members, we are eating into our time. The Honorable Minister of Agriculture was on the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I greatly appreciate your allowing this point of order. Madam Speaker, this House reflects the top decorum of what the country expects of honorable members. Madam Speaker, a case which is becoming very common of late is that when the Honorable Speaker is entering the chamber to take her seat, there is gross, I wouldn't like to use the term indiscipline, but misconduct by the left. And if you allowed me, I would name specifically the members who make that noise. Yeah, because you're afraid, Binwell, I was going to name you, so I won't. Madam Speaker, I think we need to change this so that the House can have decorum. This House is a house of serious etiquette. When the Speaker is entering, the House is supposed to be quiet. And not make noise. No. Not make noise. Let us follow order for this House.
Order, honorable members. You are not supposed to debate while seated, and that's why the Minister of Agriculture is actually standing to draw the attention of the House to the conduct of the members. May the Honorable Minister...
As I conclude, Madam Speaker, I would like to ask our colleagues, and there are a few on the left, who actually pass comments, make noise as you are entering the chamber and as you are going out. I think the etiquette we have learned here and have been taught is that there's supposed to be total quiet and respect for the chair, who is in this case the Speaker of the National Assembly of Zambia and Parliament. Madam Speaker, may I through you ask that this be checked so that we can have the necessary etiquette which is befitting this House. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Order. Order, honorable members. There is a certain acceptable conduct for honorable members, and our standing orders are very clear. I can go to Standing Order 214 just for purposes of reminding ourselves of what we are expected. 214C. So, for avoidance of doubt, I will read it. 214 refers to parliamentary decorum and etiquette. 1. Parliamentary decorum and etiquette refers to an essential standard of behavior. I repeat, an essential standard of behavior that a member must observe in the House in order to maintain the dignity and decency of the House. 2. A member shall observe the following rules of parliamentary etiquette. C. I'll go straight to C. A member who enters the chamber when the Speaker's procession is entering shall stand silently in the gangway until the Speaker has taken the chair. B also, A member shall stop any conversation and rise in his or her place as soon as the Speaker's procession enters the chamber. I think from the time that we started this session, there has been attendance of members both on the left and sometimes on the right, who, when the Speaker is entering or leaving the House, they have been running commentaries. That is in total breach of our own standing orders. We have set these rules for ourselves. Let's observe them. So please, honorable members, next time when the procession is entering or leaving the House, any honorable member who is going to make running commentaries will be in breach of the standing orders, and sanctions will visit them. So let's make sure that we are compliant. It's nothing much to ask about. So we make progress. Urgent matters without notice. I will look for the members that have not submitted. Honorable Member Fonkana, you have been given several opportunities. Since we only have 3, today I will go to the Honorable Member for Chama North. Yesterday indicated, but he didn't have an opportunity. Honorable Member Fonkana, yesterday you were given an opportunity. Yes. So today we give somebody else an opportunity. It's only fair, isn't it? The Honorable Member for Chama North.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Before I raise this matter, I want to welcome my colleagues whose seats were declared vacant. So welcome back to the House. Madam Speaker, my issue touches on 2 ministries. So I want to direct this matter to the leader of government business. Madam Speaker, Chama Central Business has been hit by water crisis for the past almost 3, 4, 5 days due to massive load shedding, but the situation has been exacerbated, Madam Speaker, because the Eastern Water and Sewerage Company has been having serious operational challenges. Madam Speaker, the situation is so critical, and I think you know that the Eastern Province recorded cholera outbreak. So we are afraid that pupils at Chama Boarding School, Chama Day School, are at great risk of contracting this disease if something is not done urgently. Madam Speaker, it must be realized that ZESCO runs a standby power generators in the district. But the generators are there. Diesel is there. But our people are suffering. They can't use the diesel generator so that they are able to supply power to the hospital and also the water utility. So, Madam Speaker, I wrote to the Managing Director of ZESCO last week, copied to the Minister of Energy about this particular crisis, but up to this time, no measures are being taken to address the situation. I therefore seek your indulgence. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member for Chama North. I suggest you put in a question, then your issue will be addressed. The Honorable Member for Nyimba, you were given an opportunity yesterday. You asked a matter of urgent matter without notice. So we go to the next one, the Honorable Member for Solwezi East.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me this chance to raise an urgent matter without notice towards the Minister of Home Affairs and Internal Security. Madam Speaker, we appreciate the effort that the government has been giving in terms of issuance of NRCs, especially for us in the rural constituencies. Madam Speaker, the officers who are issuing NRCs in our various constituencies, they have gone for 4 months now without getting pay, their allowances. And they have families. And our people who move long distances just to go and get these NRCs are also affected. Is the minister in order just to let this go for 4 months without giving these allowances, and the people are hungry, and with the crisis that we have now, hunger is knocking on their door. Madam Speaker, I seek your indulgence. This is because we know when we bring in urgent questions, we write questions. It will take another month or 2 months. Questions will not come on the floor, and hence this opportunity to raise urgent matter. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member for Solwezi East. Please, you are advised to put in a question, and you even realize yourself that your question does not qualify. That's why you are trying to give justification that even if you put a question, it takes time to be processed. So, just put in a question, it will be addressed, Honorable Member. The Honorable Member for Mandevu. You are my son, but I can send you out. Honorable Member for Mwenelonga.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, my issue goes to Minister of Infrastructure and Housing. The people of Kakoma in Mwinilunga are faced with imminent floods once the rains start, because this has been happening for the past 3 years. And we thought that for the roads, we banked on the PPP road from Rumwana to Kakoma Kambimba Road. That once this road commences construction, people would be able to use the detour that would be constructed on that road. But it's now becoming apparent that the PPP will not start anytime soon. And we fear that the people of Chief Kakoma in Mwinilunga will have no road to come to the Boma. What measures has the Ministry of Infrastructure and Housing put in place to ensure that the people of Kakoma do not face the same challenges they had the last 2-3 years? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Member for Mwinilunga, I suggest you put in a question. The Honorable Minister will be able to address it. That concludes matters, urgent matters without notice. We go to the next item, which is, I have permitted the Honorable Minister of Health to make a ministerial statement. The Honorable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity. Madam Speaker, I appreciate the opportunity to update members of this House on the implementation of the National Health Insurance Scheme, known as NIMA, which has since April 2024 reverted to the Ministry of Health in line with government's agenda of strengthening health systems for enhanced health service delivery for all our citizens and established residents. Access to good quality health care for all citizens and established residents is the vision of the New Dawn government under the leadership of His Excellency the President of the Republic of Zambia, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema. The Minister of Health is spearheading this agenda by ensuring that our people are provided with quality health services as near as possible to where they live or go to school and work without encountering any financial hardship. The role of NIMA in our national healthcare system is a critical one in pooling financial resources for the sustainable financing of quality healthcare services. Madam Speaker, through this statement, I wish to update the House on the implementation status of the scheme in meeting its objectives as per the National Health Insurance Act No. 2 of 2018 and the reforms that are now being embarked on to ensure that all citizens and established residents are registered onto the scheme and that the NIMA scheme remains solvent in meeting its obligations. Madam Speaker, NIMA was created pursuant to the National Health Insurance Act No. 2 of 2018, whose mandate includes, among others, the following. 1, to register and issue membership cards to members. 2, accredit or register healthcare providers. 3, develop a comprehensive benefit package to be accessed by the registered members. 4, facilitate access by poor and vulnerable people to insured healthcare services. 5, receive, process, and pay claims for services rendered by accredited healthcare providers. 6, undertake programs that further the sustainability of the scheme. Madam Speaker, access to NIMA services is by registration. It is therefore important that all citizens and established residents register to be members of the scheme in order for them to access NIMA services. Citizens and established residents should not wait to fall ill before they can register as NIMA members. Citizens and established residents between 18 and 64 years should be registered as contributing members on the scheme, both from the formal and informal sector. However, children below 18 years should also be registered except as beneficiaries under a principal contributing member. To take note also is that those aged 65 years and above, they are exempt from making contributions, and yet they are expected to register. So they must register, except they'll be registering without paying any contributions. A citizen and an established resident who is mentally and physically disabled and unable to work, a person one would classify as poor and vulnerable by the Ministry of Community Development and Social Services, are also exempt from making contributions to the scheme. Madam Speaker, NIMA contributions are pegged at 2% of basic income for those formally employed, and this is split equally between the employer and the employee, meaning 1% for the employer and 1% for the employee, meaning 2% is paid. But for those in the informal sector, other than the ones in the formal sector, the contribution is at an average of 50 kwacha per household per month. Let me repeat, 50 kwacha per household, or I'd say per family per month, to cover up to 7 members of that family or household. So that is 1 plus 6. 1, the principal contributor or registered member, and members of your family. Those are the children, but only up to 7. I mean, only up to 6, making you 7 plus the principal. Access to services for all members and their registered beneficiaries is uniform and is not limited to how much a member has contributed. Madam Speaker, when the New Dawn government came into power, the membership of NIMA stood at 1.6 members and beneficiaries. As of June 2024, NIMA members and beneficiaries now stands at over 4.6 million. This, Madam Speaker, is a clear reflection of the New Dawn's administration's aspiration of leaving no one behind. Madam Speaker, the current NIMA contributions...
Order, honorable members. There's a lot of talking. We need to listen to the statement, and that's why the minister is here to deliver a statement, after which honorable members will be able to ask questions. So if we are talking, how we will follow the statement? Please, can we reduce on the talking?
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for that guidance to the members. Madam Speaker, the current NIMA contributions are the lowest of any health insurance scheme, averaging only 50 kwacha per family of 7 members per month, as alluded to. With this minimal contribution, NIMA members can access all the services they need under the NIMA benefits package, comprising of the following. 1, when you're an outpatient service, for outpatient services, for inpatient medical care, including consultations, examinations, diagnostic services, which would include radiology and laboratory tests, and nursing care. Three, surgery. This would include general surgery, anesthetics, orthopedics, pediatric surgery, and ear, nose, and throat. 4, maternity and neonatal care. Around this issue, you will get antenatal care, which would include delivering normally or assisted, which could include cesarean section and postnatal care. The other free services you'd get would be around the eye care services, except there will be selected services around this. Then you have the oral health services, what you'd call dental. Then also you'd access some drugs, including medical supplies, such as blood products. Lastly, not the least, physiotherapy services. All these services, Madam Speaker, are offered to our registered members without having the need to pay at the point of access. This is the value that NIMA brings to its members. And it is the responsibility of all of us, therefore, to register to access these benefits. Madam Speaker, the current membership of over 4.6 million mentioned only represents 23% of the Zambian population. Our goal as government, through the Ministry of Health and NIMA, is to ensure that all citizens and established residents in this country must be registered and covered. Therefore, Madam Speaker, it is only through registration and making NIMA contributions that a member and registered beneficiaries can access these free services. In this regard, government through my ministry and working with NIMA has embarked on a nationwide NIMA registration exercise that was launched on Friday the 5th July in Ndola District by the Minister of Health. This mass campaign is aimed at increasing membership to the scheme in our drive towards universal health coverage. Registration of members is being done at all public hospitals, NIMA offices countrywide, and online through the NIMA website. To ease the process, Madam Speaker, NIMA has put in place a toll-free line, and the number is 8000, 8,000 in short, where members and the public can call for assistance regarding registration to NIMA. Madam Speaker, to encourage the registration of members of the public, NIMA has, for the month of July 2024, introduced a special waiver where those who register and make their monthly contributions will not have to wait for the mandatory 4 months which is required currently before accessing services. Madam Speaker, effective 5th of July, when this was launched by the Minister of Health, to 5th of August 2024, all NIMA members that will be registered and make their contributions will be able to access all those services almost immediately. For purposes of sustainability of the scheme, it is, however, important that members remain current with their NIMA contributions of 50 kwacha for the 7 members. Madam Speaker, to further enhance the registration, government is aware that even within those that are supposed to register, there will always be people we call vulnerable. And these are people who are differently abled. These are people who may be suffering from a chronic disease and are just not able to make any money. And we have those. And these are the ones that ordinarily should be captured by the Ministry of Community Development and Social Services. These are the ones that are now currently under the social cash transfer. And Madam Speaker, we have currently 1.3 million people currently categorized as poor and vulnerable by the Ministry of Community Development and Social Services. Because of the drought which was declared by His Excellency, Madam Speaker, we also now have a further 1 million of our people that have been identified in the selected districts that have suffered drought. So we are not talking anymore about the 1.3 million. We could be talking now about the 2.3 million citizens. And therefore, Madam Speaker, we have a mammoth task to ensure as government that even those, the 1.3 plus the 1 million, they should be able to access NIMA services without a problem. I'm happy to report to you, Madam Speaker, that currently government, working with cooperating partners, in particular, the Global Fund has come through, and also working with the International Labour Authority, organization ILO, that NIMA has been provided a booster for these our vulnerable groups, and currently they are going to register at least 100,000 members and beneficiaries against this 1.3 plus 1 million currently being categorized as poor and vulnerable. These, Madam Speaker, are the ones that we recently, on the Copper Belt, were able to register about 10,000 last week of the vulnerable, very vulnerable of our communities. But the number will have to reach 100. May I use this opportunity to make an appeal to Zambian citizens. If you have parents that you know are not able to manage, let's help each other. Let's ensure that we support our families, our friends, our neighbors to register. Let's help each other, especially now during this drought period. There are people that, were able to pay, but now can't pay because all their crop has gone to waste. Let me also use this opportunity to appeal to not just our usual cooperating partners, but also our local cooperating, to come on board and support NIMA in this exercise of embodying the remaining poor and vulnerable in our communities. Madam Speaker, access to NIMA services can only be through NIMA accredited health facilities, or what you call hospitals, clinics, and accredited pharmacies. It is the government's desire that every NIMA member must have access to a NIMA accredited health facility that is located as close as possible to their place of residence or work or school to facilitate convenient healthcare access. Currently, NIMA has 406 NIMA accredited facilities spread across the country. Unfortunately, most of these are along the line of rail. To ensure that every Zambian has access to a NIMA facility near them, government through the Ministry of Health has directed NIMA as follows: that 1, every district of the country must have a NIMA accredited health facility and NIMA registration presence. That is in all the 116 districts. 2, that NIMA accreditation must not be restricted to only district level hospitals and those higher, but that zonal health centers, which would include what was termed mini hospitals, which are found in sub-districts, should all be accredited. By so doing, this will bring NIMA services closer to the people. This strategic step will contribute significantly to expanding healthcare coverage to currently underserved and unserved communities. As a result of this, over 30 more zonal centers, including mini hospitals, are undergoing onboarding, and members can now access services from these facilities. Our target was that by end of June, all the 116 districts should have at least one accredited facility. And if, whether public and private, but we just have to have the presence. Madam Speaker, three, that NIMA prioritizes the accreditation of all government hospitals throughout the country, as these serve most of our own population. 4, that NIMA enhances its registration exercise to cover all citizens and established residents, particularly those in the informal sector, as well as the poor and the vulnerable. 5, that NIMA works with local authorities in the mass nationwide registration process for those in the informal sector. Madam Speaker, being a contributory scheme, NIMA's financial sustainability is of key importance for it to achieve its health financing objectives. Since NIMA's return to the Ministry of Health, several policy reforms have been devised and are under implementation to keep its financial health in check. Among the key reforms are the following. 1, launching a mass registration exercise to cover the informal sector and extend the NIMA contributions or collections coverage wider. 2, suspension of the accreditation of more new private healthcare providers. This is aimed at ensuring that priority is given to financing public facilities that service the bigger part of the population. 3, revocation of accreditation for health facilities that may have been involved in health insurance fraud. This is to safeguard public funds and ensure value for money. 4, reviewing the NIMA benefits package.
May you wind up? Your time is up.
Yes, Madam Speaker, on the 2 pages. 5, reviewing the financing modalities to enhance NIMA's collections capacity. These reforms, Madam Speaker, are all aimed at ensuring that NIMA stays afloat and achieves its objective of being a sustainable healthcare financing mechanism for government. Madam Speaker, let me emphasize that the UPND government places high importance on health as a human right that every one of us is entitled to. Investing in health, therefore, is an important undertaking in ensuring that the health rights of citizens are enjoyed. In this regard, government through the Ministry of Health, working with NIMA management and board, will ensure that all citizens and established residents are part of NIMA, irrespective of their socio-economic status. I'm confident that the NIMA membership mass registration drive that has begun will substantially drive progress towards the achievement of universal health coverage. Madam Speaker, as I conclude, let me re-emphasize the following key points. 1, NIMA is for every citizen and established resident, including the formal and informal. Therefore, everyone must be registered as per the law. 2, the services that a member can access are not limited to their contributions, but their health needs, because it is an insurance scheme. Government has provided for mechanisms to cover for the vulnerable groups. 4, one does not have to wait to be sick to register for NIMA. Everyone must register before they fall sick. 5, we urge all stakeholders to come on board and support government efforts towards this drive. My clarion call to members of this August House is to engage their communities, including local authorities, councillors, and drive the registration of all their constituents as members of NIMA. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable members are now free to ask questions on points of clarification on the ministerial statement given by the Honorable Minister of Health. We start with the Honorable Member for Kabwata.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think, Honorable Minister, the challenges that have been faced in the implementation of NIMA, we have seen that especially when it comes to the mental health care and also the maternal health care, we have seen that there's a huge gap when it comes to implementation of NIMA. However, if you look at the statistics that you've given us, the numbers have actually gone up, but without even taking into consideration the issue of how to manage these numbers that have gone up. When the numbers are going up, usually abuse usually comes in. And I've seen that most of these facilities that are accredited with NIMA, they have been abusing. In your statement, you have mentioned even the fraud that has been actually happening from these institutions that have been accredited with NIMA. I wanted to find out what measures have you put up in place that fraud and abuse of NIMA funds does not advance, especially in the next coming years. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in the statement on some of the policy and management issues that we have agreed to between Ministry of Health working with NIMA is that, 1, we know that some of the private sector have abused NIMA. Of course, not on their own. They've been aided by those public workers, even under some of our health facilities, both public and private. So what we have done is we've temporarily suspended registration of more new private facilities to be accredited. Because what was started happening is that we saw a mushrooming of accredited facilities, and all of them just along the line of rail. When you go to Western Province, you only find the Mongo Hospital accredited. You go to the next district, there's not even one. But you have civil servants whose money is being deducted. And they have to jump on a bus to go to Mongo. It's not attainable. So really, we had to stop the bleeding. And the first thing was to stop the accreditation of the private sector, but the public sector, so there's accessibility. The second point, we are going backwards now. We are looking at those public sectors, those that may have been involved in fraud. We'll catch up with them. And part of the reason, obviously, is that NIMA may have lacked that capacity to understand how these health facilities, how these hospitals, how these private, both public, how they do their costings. So they had to depend on outside support. Now that it's back with Ministry of Health, it's much easier in terms of getting standard understanding and ensuring that both the public and the private have a fair deal, but also government and the public of Zambia not being cheated. So we'll be going backwards and we'll be deregistering if we find that an accredited facility actually got more resources than they should have done. We also know, Madam Speaker, that when you go to the hospital yourself, you say, I'm ill, but I've got this flu. Then when you get into this private hospital, they say, oh no, go and have a CT scan. A flu, you don't need a CT scan, but they'll force you to get a CT scan so that they charge. And sometimes even the patients don't even know what costings are being written. It's all between that facility and NIMA. And it was a bit difficult for NIMA to do a validation. And so we found that a lot of resources. That's why you have seen in the last few years, we have a lot of clinics, private clinics that have mushroomed, expansions, and so on and so forth. Because there's been a lot of money that has come from NIMA. And unfortunately, we have seen the private sector suffer. To the extent, Madam Speaker, private firms could get money for certain services, but when you go to the public and they want to claim from NIMA, NIMA would say no. So there are all these issues that we've had to look at, but I'm grateful to NIMA and board and the ministry that we are at least on top of the game, but we still need to do a bit more of work. These are just some of the steps that we are bringing to you on the issue of membership drive. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honourable Member for Kamfinsa.
Allow me once again, Madam Speaker, to thank you for the opportunity to ask a follow-up question to the Minister of Health. Honourable Minister of Health, you do recall that on the 14th of June 2023, I'm on record as having moved a motion before this August House, Madam Speaker, urging government to actualize provision of health services to the poor and the vulnerable. And I think the debate was unanimous that we need to move in that direction. And I'm happy that I'm part of those that advocated for more people to be added to the scheme. In your statement, Honourable Minister of Health, you did mention the Global Fund. You did mention two other partners that are helping you get more poor people onto the scheme. Now, Honourable Minister, that may not be sustainable because at some point these funders will decide to pull out. My question therefore to you, is government intending to increase the 2% that currently people are contributing, or will maintain the 2% and allocate more money into the national budget to be able to capture more vulnerable people? Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you. The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Honourable, for your follow-up question, very important question. First of all, just to state that the Act, the NIMA Act, is very clear about the issue of vulnerable people. It is the objective and it is the mandate of government to ensure that even in this process, the poor must always be catered for. So it's not a new issue that could have come through here. If it was not done, it was an oversight. But the fact still remains that it is the policy of this government, it is in the Act that health is a right. So those who can't afford, it is the duty of government to do what? To support them. But obviously within the budget, because it's the Zambian people that give money to the government to do services. And the New Dawn government and the president in particular has made it very clear that the poor must be addressed. This is why the Ministry of Community Development has already 1.3 million citizens that have already been graded as vulnerable. And this year, because of the drought, again the president said nobody should go without being treated. We've added another 1 million, making it 2.3 million. Now, through the budget of the community development, the government of the day has been supporting the very vulnerable. When they go to the hospital, they're not able to buy medicines, or they're not able, the Ministry of Community Development has been assisting. The challenge is that those resources allocated may not have been sufficient because the budget has got constraints. Secondly, the Ministry of Health has to work with the Ministry of Community Development to ensure that those vulnerable people are being catered for. And so, the question, the second part of his question concerning the contributions of 2%, is 2% of the basic salaries, basic salary of those in informal the formal sector. I have already indicated in the statement that we have taken certain policy decisions, and one of the policy decisions is we are assessing the benefits package. Because the Zambian benefits package is super good. It's only in Zambia, in this part of the continent, where for 50 kwacha you get almost everything. When you go for your eyes, you choose the Gucci frames which are 5,000 or 10,000. And yet we have frames which are 300 kwacha. So people were abusing that. Now, the issue of sustainability, I've also articulated it in the statement, that this government is looking at that issue, and we are going to be assessing the services. And there's consultation right now between NIMA and the Ministry of Health Facilities, the private sector, other individuals, to see how best we can improve on that, including the unions. And I think that one of the discussions with the unions was on the 2% which the honorable member has asked for. NIMA is asking that instead of getting 2% of basic salary, can we get 2% of gross salary, like what others are doing in the region, those that have a similar scheme. And so, yes, that discussion has already taken place, and there's harmonization, there's generally agreement that if NIMA has to be sustainable, that is one area, instead of calculating 2%, because initially it should have been 5%, but for obvious reason, it was brought to 2%. But now instead of 2% of net, we are looking at 2% of gross. But all these will have to go through further consultations, cabinet, and then also the House will be able to be to participate in one or the other. So it's always good when you hear members of parliament who are already on board over this matter, they understand what's happening on the ground, when it is them coming up with such suggestions. So I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much. I notice 10 minutes plus has gone, and we have only had 2 questions, and we have several other indications. So if the answers could be precise to the point, and also the questions should be precise to the point, so that we allow as many people as possible. The Honourable Member for Lubasenshe.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to ask a follow-up question. Honourable Madam Minister of Wealth, when you are providing answers, I would like to bring to the attention that NIMA management issued a notice indicating some of the services that members will no longer access, which will be provided by themselves. I would like to find out from you, based on that notice, as a minister or as a ministry, do you consider to revisit issues to do like procuring of spectacles and other essential components that NIMA removed, so that you can able to lessen the burden that now has imposed on the members of NIMA? I submit, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Honourable, for your follow-up question. The answer is that indeed there was an intention by NIMA, but government through the Ministry of Health advised and guided them to withdraw that notice, because there was need for further consultation, so that all of us who are going to be members must appreciate what they're doing. So the process of negotiations and consultations are actually currently going on. In fact, as a matter of fact, the next week we'll be completing that, and I'll come back here again to make a ministerial statement on the same. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. The Honourable Member for Kwacha.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to ask a follow-up question to Honourable Minister of Health. From the question that came from Honourable Taengwa from Kawata, where there is a concern raised on abuse of NIMA funds, I would like to find out, Honorable Minister, because you indicated in your response to say, indeed, yes, there are these abuses. Have you made an assessment to establish how many have were actually engaged into this scourge, and what necessary measures do you intend to take against those private medical institutions that have abused NIMA funds? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you for the follow-up question. Just quickly, Madam Speaker, to say that I did say that, yes, there were abuses, and you will agree, Madam Speaker, with me that issues of insurance worldwide, they are normally these abuses, especially if your system is still very young, the way NIMA was. People take advantage. What we're trying to do now is to seal up those loopholes. Regarding those who may have been involved in fraud and overcharging and doing whatever, collecting money and so on and so forth, once proved, we will deregister them. They will not be accredited. Thank you.
The Honorable Member for Lukasha.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Minister, there have lately been stories of, in the press of NIMA having difficulties in meeting the claims of the beneficiaries. And one of the requirements for this institution being an insurance scheme is for it to operate under what is called capital adequacy requirements. I just want to find out what mechanism government has put in place to ensure that NIMA operates within the bounds of capital adequacy requirement. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister of Health.
Sorry, Madam Speaker, I didn't follow the question. If it can be repeated. Thank you.
May the Honorable Member for Lukasha repeat the question?
Madam Speaker, I was suggesting to the Minister that there have been lately stories of NIMA failing to meet its claims because of liquidity problems. And one of the requirements, because NIMA is an insurance scheme, is that it must operate within what is called capital adequacy requirements, i.e., it must always have resources to meet the needs of the claimants. So what I wanted to find out, Honorable Minister, is what mechanism government has put in place to ensure that NIMA operates within the bounds of capital adequacy requirement. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Honorable, for your follow-up question. Indeed, Madam Speaker, NIMA has had issues at some times to pay immediately to those that are providing the service. And of course, like I said, one of the issues that we discovered, of course, through NIMA, was that some of the bills were over and above. And what NIMA is doing is to ensure that, one, those bills are verified by getting back to the hospitals where those facilities, and once they find that, yes, this is okay, they are paying. Even with the challenges NIMA has faced, they are not at a point where they are completely not able to pay. And remember, NIMA is a government institution. And being a government institution, they are backed by government, and therefore they are backed by Ministry of Finance. So at no point can we say as government that those who may have genuinely provided a service will not be paid. They are being paid. But except that NIMA is very slow to pay, because initially they will just pay. And we've come to find out that even some of these...
Order. Is the Honorable Member for Mwembeji lost, or what is happening? Please, can you leave the chamber quietly, and instead of greeting people and looking like you are looking for someone, touching on people's heads like you are John the Baptist. May the Honorable Minister continue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So what I was saying was that, so NIMA is backed by government because it's a backed government institution. Institutions that have credible receipts are definitely being paid, and they will be paid. So nobody should panic over that situation, and that government is alive to the principles that govern insurances. And I have some more responses there through my PSs. As at 45 days payment commercial, they take 60-day review of benefit package. So basically what they're saying basically is what I'm saying, that people, accredited facilities should not worry. They'll be paid, and they're being paid. And we have continued also giving all the services that have been articulated, and any changes that will happen after full consultation with those that are major contributors, the unions, the employers, the employees, the people of Zambia through their house, through their cabinets, through their elected, so that at the end of the day we are all speaking the same language. It is important, Madam Speaker, that we get to that level where people are able to appreciate why it is necessary. And I'm happy that both the left and your right so far, in as far as the issue of NIMA has been concerned, we have been unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honourable Member for Chimwemwe.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Minister, we've heard that you said you want to capture more Zambians and at the same time offer quality health care. Unfortunately, if you look at Kitwe, most people are shunning Central Hospital, going to private hospitals because they believe the low-cost area is not actually treating them timely. They let them wait. So do you have any intentions of doing away with the low cost from our government institution and just have high cost? Because everybody now is paying NIMA. So why should we have segregation? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Honourable. Very interesting and important questions that are being asked. And I want to agree with you. As a public facility, when we offer services to our members or to our citizens, they have to be at an equal platform. You cannot have one section of the hospital written NIMA ward, and then I don't know what the other word is called. This is part of sometimes the misinterpretation of an act that is well made by those that implement at the bottom. And we have directed our health facilities that there should be no NIMA and non-NIMA. The fact that somebody is poor has failed to pay NIMA should not be the reason why you should tell that person, we can't deal with you here, go to that place. And the fact, Madam Speaker, is that what has happened, which is unfortunate, you have a situation now, because I'm a NIMA member, when I'm pregnant, I'm going to deliver. I don't want to go and deliver at the level 1 hospital. I want to go to CFB if it's accredited. I want to go to Coptic. I want to go to Midland. Women now don't want to go and give birth in UTH or they want to go to Forest Park. The same thing I talked about. You are allowed to go and get your eyes tested and given some glasses of some kind, but you want to go to some sexy, funky optic shop along Cairo Road where you'll be looking for, I saw the speaker with the Christian Dior. That's the one I want also. But the speaker got the Christian Dior when she traveled. And those Christian Dior glasses, they are $1,000. And you do that at the expense of government. NIMA must pay for your Christian Dior glasses. Really? You want to go and put teeth at, no, I want a gold teeth. At whose cost? So these are some of the mistakes in the implementation. We recognize them, that as government we are doing everything possible. We just ask for your time, but your support is very important. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much. The Honourable Member for Chifubu.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity given to the people of Chifubu. Honourable Minister, we want to thank you for the massive registration of members on the NIMA program that is currently going on across the country. And this has brought a lot of excitement amongst the members. Now, the members have a lot of expectation now that they are on the NIMA program. They want to find out to what extent are they covered by NIMA, because others are saying now my son needed to go out for medical treatment outside or specialized treatment. Now I'm on NIMA. Am I going out for treatment because now I've been registered on NIMA? Specialized treatment, I'm on NIMA. Are they covered? If they are not, to what extent are they covered, and to what extent or what other medical services may not be sought under the NIMA program to the members? Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister of Health.
Thank you very much. NIMA membership is for Zambians, and the services to be given are Zambian services. NIMA membership is not based on treatment abroad. That's a different story altogether. The government of the Republic of Zambia has had this specialized treatment abroad budgeted for. This house itself did budget for that. And you know, in the last decades, yourselves as members of the House and also members of the country, that many times individuals have been sent abroad for specialized treatment. What we've done under the New Dawn government is we divided this issue called specialized treatment abroad and created what we call local specialized treatment. So we just shared the same money. We're not interested to seeing this money, all of it being spent for those that go abroad. We realize that even locally for specialized treatment, certain specialized treatment can be done here locally by the private sector, including the public sector. So for those treatments that can be done locally, for example, you want to have a knee replacement or hip replacement, it can be done in Zambia. What do we do? Using that local specialized treatment account, we support the poor to have certain specialized treatment done here locally in the public sector and including the private sector. The challenge obviously is that the amount is small. The disease burden in the country has really increased. And that's why as a ministry we are pushing for prevention so that the budget for health should not be going up because either we are overeating or we are not doing exercises, and so you have all these many diseases which are coming. And so all I can say is that the NIMA services as NIMA does not mean therefore now you have a passport to go abroad. You don't have to be NIMA for you to go abroad. We are sending anybody as long as we realize that that life can be saved abroad and we are not able to do it ourselves locally. Within the budget, we still send. So whether you are NIMA or whether you're not NIMA, it is the job of government to support its people within their capacity. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Kaumbwe.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity. Honorable Minister, you have mentioned there are 406 NIMA accredited facilities countrywide. Now, in the rural constituencies or in rural areas, like if I take example of my constituency, I have more than 10 rural health centers. Kaumbwe constituency have got more than 10 what we call RHCs, rural health centers. So we would have members that are registered on NIMA to access medical facilities. They've got to travel more than 80 kilometers to Petauke District Hospital. And yet, just at a short distance, there's a rural health center where they can access, where they can easily be, where they can easily access medical facilities. My question is, wouldn't you consider to make all health facilities that are, of course, under your ministry to be able to accept NIMA registered patients, people that they can access healthy services from their nearest facility? I thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Honorable, for your follow-up question. It helps just to make some few clarifications. The health posts in your constituency, the health centers in your constituency, I take it you don't have what we're calling zonal centers in your constituency. You just have rural health centers. and if they're not zonal, they're not going to be accredited. But the fact still remains that the community of that constituency, they can go to those health posts, health centers, and access full health coverage services that are being offered there. So there's no restriction because they have not been accredited. Every health facility in the country will offer what it has been mandated to offer in terms of the level of service. So your health posts will continue to do to everybody who approaches them as long as they're citizens of this country. We are encouraging people to register because it is mandatory that you register. So that when you now have to go to a higher facility, like you live in Kawombo, you're in Petauke, you're in Ndola, you get sick, you can go to any hospital within Ndola. Just using your card, you'll still be attended to without any problem. And if you left your facility because they're not giving you a better, not because they're not giving you a better service, but because they're limited in the service they're giving you, you still can go to a higher level without any problem. Thank you.
The Honorable Member for Wacha.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity. And thank you so much, Minister, for the statement delivered this afternoon. Madam Speaker, when UPND party formed government, moved NIMA from Ministry of Labour to Ministry of Health. Minister, when your government, your party formed government, moved NIMA from Ministry of Health to Labour, my question is, was this part of the collateral damage, as there was no expertise to audit private hospitals, and therefore did NIMA compromise health services to the people? And in your reflection, Minister, in your view, do you think NIMA has been delivering services to the expectations of our people using funds collected from our citizens? I submit, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Honorable, for your follow-up question. Madam Speaker, those who are NIMA members will be the best people to vouch that, in fact, all people who are accredited as and registered as NIMA members will tell you that NIMA has done a fantastic job. Fantastic job. I think that the challenge is that those that were accredited to give that service, some of them abused that. Secondly, because this was a new issue, remember NIMA was registered, I think, in 2019. And 2019, 2020, 2018. And by 2021, September, I said there were only 1.4 million citizens that were registered as members and beneficiaries, which is a very small number. Even up to 2022-23, the number has only increased to 4.6. Even that, I have said, it is still small. It's only 23% of the population. For NIMA to be effective and to live to its expectation, it is when we cover everybody, leaving no one behind. Then we can say, yes, we have gotten somewhere. And this is why we continuously continue to make NIMA better. And without really getting into those issues, all I can say is let us work together, both the left and the right, and the people out there, to agree that the concept of NIMA has its positives. It will have challenges, but those challenges can only be overcome if both left and right and the people out there work together and build it. And where it has weaknesses, we should continue to refine. There are other countries that have done very well. There are other countries that have done very badly. We can learn best practices from those that have succeeded. With that said, Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you. We've run out of time, but since we didn't hear from any female members, I will allow the Honorable Member for Chiengi to ask a question.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister, you've just actually in one of your answers where you've said that NIMA has not really reached the level where it can effectively perform, which I agree with you. But I wanted to find out from your ministry, why don't you do some, like you segment who should be, like those who can afford to be in a certain class of paying NIMA, the middle class, high class, and lower class. Because if there are no segmentation, you'll find that NIMA, you find a person like me, a member of parliament, I'm paying 50 kwacha, when I can afford maybe even 300 kwacha. Why don't you go like that so that those who are in the high class, so to say, if there's high class, can cushion for the masses who are in the, I'll call it medium and low class. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Honorable, for your important question. It helps to make some clarifications. I think that was the idea, in fact, that the rich subsidizes the poor. And then, of course, government itself ensures that they also look after the very vulnerable by really coming through. And that was the intention, and that continues to be the intention. And if you see, for those who are in formal employment like yourself, it's 2% of your net pay. So meaning if you are getting 100,000 and the one getting 50,000, is 2% of 100,000 kwacha that you are getting, and is 2% of those who are getting 50,000, is 2% for those who are getting 5,000, is 2% of those who are getting 2,000. So that helps to achieve exactly what you have said. But for the informal groups whereby they are taxi drivers, they're marketeers, they're sewing, they're doing maybe some artwork, or they're making money using social media, because I just learned that others also make money just out of propaganda on social media. That's why you find there's a lot of propaganda, because somebody pays you for that. So as long as you are making an income of one kind or another, you are a farmer, the amount has been made standard, 50% on average, 50 kwacha. Okay? So 50 kwacha for 7 members of your household or your family, including yourself, you the principal payer. Now, your question is valid, Madam Speaker, when it comes to those at 65 and above, because the law now is that 65 and above is free registration. They don't pay anything. And yet we know that there are many of our citizens who continue to receive huge sums of money, even in their retirement. And yet they can't even pay 50 kwacha. They are free. And I think those are some of the things we'll be looking at in future when the system has stabilized. There are many areas where we can see. But what is good is that the very vulnerable, like the differently abled persons, those are being captured by Ministry of Community Development, working with the Ministry of Health and, of course, other cooperating partners. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We need to make progress. We have run out of time. So we go to the next order on the order paper. Notes of motion. The Honorable Member for Momba.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to move that this House do adopt the report of the Planning and Budgeting Committee on the 2024 Annual Borrowing Plan amendment for the 3rd session of the 13th National Assembly laid on the table of the House on 5th July 2024.
Thank you. Is the motion seconded?
Yes, Madam Speaker.
Seconded by the Honorable Member for Mwense. The question is that this House adopts the report of the Planning and Budgeting Committee on the consideration of the 2024 Annual Borrowing Plan Amendment for the third session of the 13th National Assembly, laid on the table of the House on Friday, 5th July 2024. Any debate? The Honourable Member for Momba.
Madam Speaker, in accordance with these terms of reference as provided for in Standing Order 206, number 7 of the National Assembly of Zambia Standing Orders 2024, the committee was tasked to scrutinize the 2024 Annual Borrowing Plan Amendment by the House. Madam Speaker, you may wish to note that the committee was informed that the amendment of the 2024 Annual Borrowing Plan was necessitated by two important elements, and these are the refinancing of the fuel arrears and the augmented financing support under the IMF Extended Credit Facility due to the impact of the drought on the economy. In this regard, Madam Speaker, the government plans to raise additional debt financing of 6 billion kwacha in domestic financing and 490.78 US million in external financing. Of the additional external financing, Madam Speaker, the government plans to disburse 195.5 million US in 2024. Madam Speaker, allow me from the outset to inform this House that all the stakeholders who appeared before the committee during its deliberations were in support of the revision of the 2024 Annual Borrowing Plan, as they recognize the need for the government to intervene in the drought crisis as well as to refinance the costly fuel arrears. However, some stakeholders expressed concern regarding Zambia's ability to sustain debt, considering that the 2023 debt sustainability analysis indicated that Zambia remained in debt distress, with all sustainability indicators being unmet. Madam Speaker, the committee notes with concern that the present value of external debt service to the revenue and exports ratios significantly breach the recommended thresholds, highlighting the need to critically assess whether projected economic growth and revenue generation would suffice to service the increased debt without compromising essential public services. Madam Speaker, you may wish to note that the stock of external debt has continued to rise from 13 billion at the end of 2021 to 14.7 billion at the end of the first quarter of 2024. While the committee recognizes that the external debt being contracted now is concessional and aimed at restoring macroeconomic and social stability in light of the drought Zambia is experiencing, it is concerned that the continued increase in the debt stock of external debt may negate the gains that have been made by the government in restoring debt sustainability. In this regard, Madam Speaker, the committee strongly recommends that the government takes measures to enhance fiscal discipline, particularly regarding external debt contraction. Madam Speaker, notwithstanding the above, the committee notes the government's efforts in ensuring that public debt is sustainable through the implementation of several key reforms, such as the nearly concluded external debt restructuring, oversight of borrowing by state-owned enterprises, and the operationalization of the Debt Management Office. In this regard, Madam Speaker, the committee implores the House to support the revision of the annual borrowing plan to enable government to facilitate the payment of fuel arrears and mitigate the negative impact of the drought of the economy. Madam Speaker, as I conclude, I wish to pay tribute on behalf of the committee. I need to amplify this, Madam Speaker. You have a very hard-working committee. To all the stakeholders who attended both oral and written submissions before it, I also wish, Madam Speaker, to thank you. And also the Clerk of the National Assembly for the guidance and support that they accorded the committee throughout its deliberations. Madam Speaker, I beg to move.
Thank you very much. Does the seconder wish to speak now or later?
Now, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Member for Mwense.
Madam Speaker, in seconding the motion, I concur with the chairperson's remarks on the need to approve the 2024 annual borrowing plan amendment. Madam Speaker, let me re-echo the fact that the 2024 annual borrowing plan amendment, as submitted by my able chairperson, was necessitated by the need to refinance few arrears and augment financing support under the IMF extended credit facility due to the impact of the drought on the economy. Madam Speaker, let me from the onset inform the August House that stakeholders who appeared before the committee were in support of the 2024 annual borrowing plan amendment. However, they submitted that increasing reliance on domestic and external borrowing does not, among others, escalate the debt servicing cost, crowds out essential government expenditure, and increases vulnerability to exchange rate fluctuations. Further, Madam Speaker, stakeholders submitted that payment of few arrears in United States dollars also posed a negative impact on the exchange rate. That notwithstanding, as a way to mitigate this risk, as well as crowding out the private sector, local banks were required to source funds to be lent to the government externally. Madam Speaker, the committee was further informed that as at the end of March 2024, only 500 million of the projected not domestic financing of 16.3 billion was raised to finance the national budget. The lower than expected outturn was largely attributed to the underperformance of government securities auctions arising from the tight liquidity conditions in the economy. Madam Speaker, as was earlier stated by the mover, high levels of public debt beyond sustainable thresholds could negatively impact economic growth, signifying the need for the government to minimize debt accumulation to avoid slowing down economic growth. Despite the above, Madam Speaker, as I earlier indicated, approving the 2024 annual borrowing plan amendment is critical to the building of a resilient economy during this drought period. Madam Speaker, I beg to second.
Thank you very much. Any further debate? I notice there is a lot of interest. So to ensure that we all debate, members can sometimes, you don't have to use your all 8 minutes, and also avoid repeating yourselves. If one member has already brought out an issue, another member can bring out another issue, so that we allow as many members to debate. The Honorable Member for Kamfisa.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. May I thank Chairperson for the committee for this report, Vice Chair for seconding the report. Madam Chair, I will quickly take members of this House to page 1. On page 1, Madam Speaker, of the report, under item 3.1, there is confirmation from the committee that government intends to increase its borrowing from domestic financing from 16.3 billion to 22.3 billion, a confirmation that borrowing will take place. Madam Speaker, on page 2, there's a table that is summarized, which is showing that 6 billion kwacha additional borrowing will take place, additional in the context that we already approved an amount. Now the minister needs an extra 6 billion kwacha from domestic borrowing. And from the Vice Chair's comment, obviously we now have to get this money either from government securities, which means that we need to ask people to either buy government bonds or treasury bills. Obviously, we need a conversation on that matter as I wind up my debate. But that confirms, Madam Speaker, that we are borrowing 6 billion kwacha domestically. Item 3.2 talks about external borrowing. Again, Madam Speaker, I'm taking the liberty to refer to these figures because this is not our conversation. It is important that our people out there are aware what figures we need to approve today and for what particular purpose. 3.2, Madam Speaker, the item reported in the report of the Chair
which is your report, Madam Speaker, is that we are looking for $490 million external money, meaning the Zambian government is looking for $490 million to be borrowed. This is not a grant. This is borrowed money that we need to approve today. Again, it confirms that government is looking for borrowed funds. Madam Speaker, very quickly, something that is important for our public out there. Item 3.3 in the report. The last sentence in the report, Madam Speaker, reads, and I quote, "Consequently, the projected net increase in the total central government debt stock, both domestic and external, was projected to be 1.6 billion. Meaning, Madam Speaker, that our current debt stock will go up. This is something that we be interested to know, so that as we discuss, do we need to borrow? I think that by now, everyone is appreciating that sometimes government has to borrow. And I think that it is important that we are all honest enough to discuss for what purpose will this money be borrowed. So point number 3.3, Madam Speaker, confirmation that we have to borrow. Now, let me quickly go to my submissions based on this background that I've given. Madam Speaker, point number 1, and these are my submissions to the Minister of Finance. I think that as we discuss the need to borrow, which obviously the technical committee and the report that has been prepared probably has highlighted why we are borrowing. But my comment, Madam Speaker, and this is something that has been exercising my mind for a long time, my comment would be restricted to how can we ensure, Honorable Minister of Finance, that the resource we have in the mining sector gives us more revenue. And I hope that next time we have an annual borrowing plan coming to this August House, we must also be told our strategy in the mining sector to encourage more revenue from the mining sector is as follows. Because today, yes, we need this money. Today you need our supporters, members of Parliament, to approve this report that you have brought before today for us to approve. But you've not highlighted which areas of opportunity will give us the local revenue that we can generate on our own as a country. And for me, Minister of Finance, it is the mining sector. 1.6 billion kwacha, which $1.6 billion, which you are asking us to approve today. I feel personally, Madam Speaker, that the Minister should have done justice by giving us other options of financing, even as he's asking us to approve, because obviously we need the money, so he needs our support, and obviously we have to give government the support to get this finance. But where are the other alternative sources? What can we do in the mining sector, Madam Speaker, to generate more revenue? So for me, Minister of Finance, you are in a very awkward position because you need the money, and you've indicated that this money is urgently needed, and it is confirming that even the new government is borrowing. But we would want you to tell us, what other avenues can Zambia explore to raise $1.6 billion? I don't think $1.6 billion is money that we can fail to generate locally, Madam Speaker. My challenge to government, next time you come with an annual borrowing plan, which will justify what you need, where you borrow the money, can you go a step further? I hope this can be captured even in your next speech to Parliament as you request for approval of the 2025 national budget. Tell us how we can maximize income from the mining sector. Chairperson of the committee, we are ready to support the activities that will ensure that our economy is moving at the right trajectory. But you've not told us what we can do with the mining sector. I feel that the mining sector is where we need to maximize our income. If we do it right in the mining sector, Madam Speaker, we will not be borrowing $1.6 billion. The people of Kamfinsa, Madam Speaker, proudly submit that can we do more in the mining sector? Can we sort out the challenges that our sector is facing so that we are able to maximize local revenue without having to borrow $1.6 billion? Madam Speaker, I submit and I thank you.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Member for Luena.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity given to the people of Luena to support the report
ably moved by the Honorable Member for Momba and seconded by the Honorable Member for Mwense. Madam Speaker, the people of Luena are from the onset wishing to state that they support the report. But they do have a few observations to make. And maybe I should pick it up from the debate of my honorable colleague for Kamfisa, who has challenged the Minister of Finance that every time we are talking about borrowing, indeed we should talk about the resource, especially in the mining sector. They say that there's a lot of money there that we shouldn't be borrowing because we are sitting on billions and billions of dollars in the mining sector. Honorable Minister, it is not lost on the people of Luena that when the UPND government got into power, it found a debt stock of $13 billion US. And that is with the minerals still there in this country. These minerals were not discovered last week. Honorable Minister, Madam Speaker, it's also not lost on the people of Luena that whilst we are actually approving the supplementary budget amounting to 42 billion, almost 20 billion of this is going towards debt servicing. Both debt arrears as well as external debt as well as arrears. About 10 billion on arrears and 9 billion on external debt servicing. Madam Speaker, this is borrowing that happened while we had copper in this country. The item that I would like to pick up on that was highlighted in the report, that debt is indeed going to be procured, and that is going to increase from 13 billion to 14.7, and therefore the net borrowing that my colleague was talking about of about 1.6 billion is indeed noted. However, we should take this opportunity also to indicate that whilst there is a confirmation of borrowing taking place of this 1.6 billion, at least the propaganda of the 6 billion that has been peddled out there has been cleared today. There is no 6 billion that has been borrowed by this government since it came into power, and the report says so. So, Madam Speaker, it's important that when we are dealing with this issue of debt, it's not lost on us that part of the reasons why almost 50% of the supplementary budget is going to go into debt servicing is because there was wanton contracting of debt in the past, Madam Speaker. And Honorable Minister, the people of Luena would like to indicate that whilst they appreciate the passing of the Public Debt Management Act in 2022, they would like to further emphasize that the debt that was procured in the past, Honorable Minister, was significantly abused, misapplied, and misused in a number of instances by implementing agencies. Your ministry will do so much work, as you have done so far, in securing the necessary finances at the right price and at the right time. But if we do not have systems that are monitoring the application and implementation of these projects in the implementing agencies, Honorable Minister, we will run into serious problems. In the past, Honorable Minister, we have noted that entities would be given huge sums of money for specific projects, but they would cleverly craft the contracts in such a manner that the government is significantly financially exposed. Any little negative development results in huge penalties on the part of the government. And we, as the people of Luena, we would like to note that this was supposedly done with the procedures all being followed, but so much negligence in the way these projects were being implemented. It's no wonder at some point we found ourselves in a situation where the country was littered with incomplete projects. How were we getting to start these projects without proper plans in place on how they are going to be financed and the project implementation strategies? Clearly, it means that we were borrowing in certain instances based on the availability of money rather than the business case that we have that needed to be financed, and therefore we had the proper plans on how we are going to implement. So we would like to suggest that we don't want to see a repeat of what happened in the 750 million euro bond, in the 1 billion euro bond, and the further borrowing that led up to 3 billion that we cannot see where it went. A little bit of that money was thrown all over institutions, and nothing is there to show for the debt burden that the people of Zambia have been left with by our colleagues that were in government. So indeed, as the people of Luena, we are supporting this report, but we would like to indicate that the people of Zambia should not forget that the problems we are having today, this debt burden we are carrying now, is something that you inherited as a government, and we are happy that resources are being put in place in order to dismantle it. As we conclude, Madam Speaker, I would like to indicate specifically the issue of fuel arrears. The contracts in the procurement of fuel were so deliberately designed such that if the government did not increase the amount of money to clear these arrears, you would never be in a position to get out of the debt arrears in relation to fuel. The amounts that were being paid were lower than the interest that was being accrued because of how negligent the previous regime was in signing these fuel contracts. On top of buying it at a higher price and selling it cheap, they were accepting to pay interest on anything that was outstanding. And so we would like to support the annual borrowing plan with these few words to go with. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Member for Bwana Mkubwa.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, let me thank the Honorable Member for Momba, the chairperson of the committee, the mover of this motion, and the seconder, Honorable Mabumba from Mwense. Madam Speaker, a lot of things so far have been said by my colleagues, and I'm not here to repeat what they've said, but just to support this important motion. However, I just got a few issues I just wanted to bring to the floor of this House, and these issues are affecting us. Madam Speaker, if we look at the report, it has brought up very, very important and salient features which we need to look at to ensure that we look at our trajectory in terms of even as we proceed to approve our annual borrowing plan of 2024. Madam Speaker, there are issues of tight monitoring policy stance which has been put by various institutions such as the Bank of Zambia. Yes, it's important because it's there to contain inflation as well as issue of our volatile foreign exchange rate. But, Madam Speaker, this intervention also has got an effect on our domestic resource mobilization, in which we also rely majorly on the support of the budget. Madam Speaker, there are also issues on terms of external borrowing plan, especially issues of debt sustainability, which are very, very important because we're looking at how we are moving from our current debt stock and how we are proceeding. Yes, we do understand that the borrowing which the government intends to, the loans which they intend to contract are concessional loans between 0 to 2.5%, which is very good. But however, Madam Speaker, if the maturities of some of these loans, if you look at the annual borrowing plan, which some of them are 10 years plus, if they fall due almost at the same time, then the Treasury has pressure on servicing these obligations, which we intend to have an adverse effect on our economic growth. So these are some of the issues we need to reconcile to ensure that we have space and we don't suffocate as a country. We are just coming from the debt restructuring process, and these are some of the issues which we need to look at very, very which are very, very important issues, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, let me move and also just comment that we've seen where we're coming from, and some of the loans which were contracted, if we look at some of the interest, commitment fees, and which have been paid by government, we find eventually some of these loans are cancelled, there's rescoping of works, which ensure that there's a delay. A loan is signed, but it takes 10 years and eventually is cancelled. These are some of the issues, Madam Speaker, we need to be wary of as a country to ensure that we are in a good roadmap to ensure that we are able to achieve economic recovery to that aspect. Madam Speaker, we've got our able technocrats in the Ministry of Finance and the Budget and Economic Affairs, and they ought to tell us and come up with good mechanisms which will ensure that the government, even as they contract these loans, there are no embedded terms, because we've seen embedded terms in some of these contracts in which government has lost colossal sums of money because the technocrats are not coming up to inform the policymakers to say these are the defects, these are the issues. When we contract a loan, it's got a specific period. Let me comment on the issues of some of the concession, some of the loans which were contracted, but there's late disbursement of funds. How do you contract loans, then funds are not disbursed? That entails that the government, when you have a delay, they keep suffering and paying interest on top of those loans which have contracted. By the end of the day, we are not seeing the cost-benefit analysis. By the end of the day, we are not seeing the benefit to the country, but the country keeps getting so much indebted. These are some of the issues our people from the Ministry of Finance should advise us, should advise policymakers to ensure that we do not contract loans and keep looking at them because of these, some of the milestones which we need to come up with. We need to rescope works, we need to look at other issues. Why? How do you, Madam Speaker, contract a loan, then go and sit down and look at mechanisms on how we are going to disburse the loans and implement some of those funds? First, you sit down, plan, and look at all ministries which are affected on how you are going to implement a particular project. Let's look, for instance, of Smart Zambia. You borrow money to do phase 2 of Smart Zambia, but you have not sat with other ministries, such as the Ministry of Home Affairs, to look at the NIRAS, the immigration, and all these other places, so that you harmonize, so that when you have the funds available, then you can proceed to disburse the funds and implement the aforesaid projects. So that is very, very important, Madam Speaker, that there's proper coordination between stakeholders to ensure that as and when these funds are acquired through various stakeholders in terms of loans, we have already sat and we've got a plan to move forward to ensure that we effectively implement the projects and the programs under where we borrowed some of these funds, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, yes, there's a revision of our GDP and all that, which has got an effect on our macroeconomic indicators. It's very, very important that some of those issues are also reviewed to ensure that they are in tandem with what is being done in terms of revision of various indicators, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I thought of contributing those few remarks as I sit and support this report. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much. The Honourable Member from Pika.
I'm grateful, Madam Speaker, and thank you, the Chairperson, for that well-delivered report. Madam Speaker, this report confirms that we are here discussing debt contraction. We are discussing borrowing at a time when we should be discussing moratorium on debt construction. Madam Speaker, the debt situation for our country today is like a patient who is on hospital and has been advised by doctors to stop taking alcohol, but that patient continues. we are pursuing debt restructuring. On the other hand, we are contracting more debts. At a time when, Madam Speaker, we should have focused on mobilizing local revenues, particularly from the mines. Madam Speaker, just Luapula province, where Honorable Mpundu comes from, there is sodalite.
Yes.
There is also manganese.
Yes.
There is also copper. Madam Speaker, for us to realize the money that the Minister of Finance is proposing to borrow, we only need about 6.5 trucks of sodalite. We would have made $1 billion US. Check the prices of sodalite, Madam Speaker, on the London Metal Exchange. That is the price today.
Yes.
We only need about, we have cobalt, Madam Speaker, in our country. A ton of cobalt is selling at $63,739.
How much is gold?
And how many do we have in our country? How much resource in that area do we have in our country? We have gold, even in Mpika, where a kg is selling at $76,000. A kg only. And we only about 5 trucks for us to pay this money that the minister is going to travel out to go and borrow. Madam Speaker, on the other hand, copper prices have gone up to 10,393 metric tons. Madam Speaker, today as we are discussing borrowing, our economic mainstay, which is mining, multinational companies involved in mining, Madam Speaker, are enjoying tax holidays on a promissory note that they want to increase copper output to 3 million metric tons. Why? That is our resource. That is the resource that need to change and the resource that need to develop our country. If there is nothing that we are getting tangibly from the mines, Madam Speaker, it's high time a government that cares for the people took over the mines. We cannot be discussing borrowing every year when we have resources. Madam Speaker, the FIC report of 2023 has revealed 13.3 billion illicit financial flows. And if it was thoroughly checked, some of these illicit financial flows are actioned from the mining sector. This tells us that we are losing a lot as a country. But there, we are taxing the poor people even on mobile network. We leave mining companies with these illicit financial flows. Madam Speaker, in 2024 first quarter, the same FIC report reveals 60 billion kwacha financial flows. But here, we are discussing the contraction of 6 billion domestic debt, 490 million US dollars external debt, and I hear someone passing those running comments, when he knows that there was an undertaking to put a moratorium on contraction of debt. Even when there is this contraction of debt, there is nothing much to point at in terms of infrastructure development. Muchinga province, where I come from, township roads in Mpika in a dilapidated state.
Members, let's avoid debating while seated. You've been guided earlier. May the Honorable Member from Mpika continue.
A road from Mpika to Nabwaria, where we have a community of 15,000. There is literally no road, Madam Speaker, and a contract has been cancelled, citing lack of funds. And I hope this time around that we are going to approve this borrowing plan, that road will be done. Plus other roads across the country. Madam Speaker, the existence of government is there to distribute resources to its people in terms of infrastructure, services, and other things. So when we discuss these things, I heard someone talking about the Eurobonds. I mean, this is an honorable member who actually travels out of the country through Kenneth Kaunda International Airport, which was contracted from borrowing.
Restrict yourself to your debate.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well guided by your wisdom, Madam Speaker. Okay. Madam Speaker, my point is that we are able to point at some of the things that were done from the contraction of the debt. And we expect even more to be done, Madam Speaker. That's my point. Even the issue, Madam Speaker, of saying, there was a huge debt mounted. Yes. And that is what the Zambian people decided to change players for. They did not expect the new players to continue on the same habit of borrowing, contracting, Kalova, Madam Speaker. That's what they voted against, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as I conclude, I want to appeal to the Minister of Finance that please tighten the loopholes on the mines. Let them pay the taxes that are due to the Zambian people. The Zambian people cannot suffer at the expense of their own resources that are run by multinationals. Our own people are suffering today. They are buying mirimi at higher prices, yet they have resources behind their yards. Madam Speaker, with a hard-working Minister of Finance like the one sitting there, we can see high taxes on the mines and even eventually taking over the mines so that all the resources being collected is put to service delivery for our people. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you very much. I was hoping people would yield some time, but it looks like they are not reluctantly doing so. The Honorable Member for Kalabo Central.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I've heard those figures. Okay, let me first thank the mover and also the seconder, also thanking the committee. Also to state that I'm in support of the motion. Now, I will just express one or two things. Between the two, the parent of a daughter and the one who wants to marry, who sets the dowries? Traditionally, the one who sets the dowries is the father of the daughter or the parents of the daughter who is to be married. That is normal. So, let us try to see. In the beginning, there was nothing. The world was void. Yes. There was nothing. So from that nothing, two theories arose. There are those who believe there's someone who created. Then there's another version of saying things generated themselves. So we have two versions. But Madam Speaker, what it shows is that there was a beginning. And on both sides, you will discover that there's a human being. Those who believe there was a creator, there's also a human being who was created. Even on the other side, where they say things involved, there's also a human being. Madam Speaker, this is Africa. This is Zambia. You know, sometimes I chat with the honorable member here. I've never gone to those high schools, I haven't gone to those schools, and I don't even think that I can cherish to go there. Today we are talking of debts. D-E-B-T. Not debt of a fruit, no. But In my language, it is called Makongo, meaning a debt. You owe someone. We are energizing ourselves so that we pay, but we are going to get. Now the question, Madam Speaker, is, what are we going to get from that debt? For how long have we been getting debts? When are we going to stop? You know, this issue of saying no, debts, things must start. If they are using the word start, it's logical to end. If you are using to rise, it's also logical to go down. Madam Speaker, we have gold in Zambia. We have copper in Zambia. We have people in Zambia. There's no country in the world without people. All countries have people. And all countries develop because of people. What is it that we don't have here? Madam Speaker, there's nothing we don't have. There's nothing, literally there's nothing. We have an energetic finance minister. We have an energetic president. Look, Madam Speaker, from 2021 when UPND came into power, headed by His Excellency HH, you go 130 kilometers from the bottom of Karabo, you find a superstructure there. Why can't we use that? Using that principle of identifying the locals to make sure that we use our copper, we use our agricultural land. Didn't the president go to Congo? He went there. Why did he go there? When he came back, he told us that those people, they are in need of maize. That's what he told us. Are we not able to produce the maize? The cost of maize in Congo is more than the cost of maize where? Here in Zambia. Yes. We have enough land. We have national service. Madam Speaker, I went for national service. The idea why national service, you look at the color of the uniform. Why is that color? Why was that color adopted? That was Green Revolution. Green Revolution to produce food for Zambians. That's the essence of Zambia National Service. Why they bought tractors? I was at Ndora National Service Camp. We were taught to grow maize. They bought tractors from Russia, Fort Street, which could work 24/7. Madam Speaker, if we borrow this money and put it into heavy agriculture, making sure these youths are made to drive these tractors, are you telling me we can't yield the grain that can pay these debts? Okay? It's up to us. It's up to us. Madam Speaker, let me finally say this. If a man does not have male children, does not have sons, he has only daughters, but he has cattle, the question is, who is going to head those animals? Is he going to look for other people's children to come and head the cattle? He's going to use the same girls. My firstborn was a boy. I could not go and get a girl so that he comes and washes the plates in my home. I use the same boy to wash the plates. Why can't we use ourselves to move away from the idea of debts? That's my word, honorable members. Zambians, let us wake up. Let us be strong to make this country a better country. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I like the generosity of giving sweets, water. Thank you very much, Honorable Member for Kalavo Central. We go to the Honorable Member for Muchinga. I've seen indicated, but is not there. Then the other independent will be Honorable Member for Nyimba. I'm balancing the debate, don't worry.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker.
Please, if you could yield some time, 4 minutes, so that other members can also have
I'll
time.
try, Madam Speaker, because my chairman for my committee has spoken. 40% of what I wanted to contribute, Honorable Myoto. And thank you so much, Chair, for presenting this report and the deputy. Chair, Madam Speaker, I have few things to talk about. I wonder what is wrong with our country, Zambia. Yes, there's nothing wrong by borrowing, because if you don't have, you have to borrow for you to start a new life. So if you keep on borrowing, in my language we say chankala chi joveres, meaning you have become addicted to borrowing. This country, Madam Speaker, we have everything we need as a country, starting from 1964 to date. Both in agriculture, in mining, we can do wonders. But what is it that has kept us so closed up to just borrowing? There is no government which hasn't borrowed. We have the 13 billion we're talking about. We are talking about borrowing another 6 billion to increase our annual borrowing to 22.3 billion kwacha, which is not sustainable for us as a country. Are you telling me that when we had 3 graduates, less than 100 graduates at University of Zambia, they had a solution to the problems we have today? We have Vietnam, which came out of war. Today, their GDP, Honorable Minister, you know where it is. They have moved. They never imported anyone from somewhere. If I ask here, Madam Speaker, you agree with me that 90% of Zambia, most educated persons in Zambia today, they have got masters. But keeping them, hanging them without a solution. What am I asking you, Madam Minister? Minister, can we go back to our basics? The basics are, can we engage Zambians to do first thing, mining, underground mining? You bring in people from Bolivia, from whatever they come from, they do the same meter, for example, at $100, a Zambian doing the same job at $10. But you keep those people, giving them mining incentives for nothing. Why can't we move from there and give a Zambia? Let's not look at a certain political inclined person when he's doing business that is going to fight you. But that person, Minister, I agree that I know under Patrick Mwanawasa, you were there in the ministry. And you know the answers for Mwanawasa which he gave. And you know when the dollar or the copper was at this current price, what Mwanawasa did to this country, where our levels of debts were. You were the director in that ministry. And you understand. And what is so important, what is so difficult today to go the same route? In farming, Madam Speaker, we spoke about when UPND took over government, we spoke about 300 million to invest in agriculture. What has happened? It has died the natural death. If that money was invested in agriculture, we would have seen of maize, we would have seen the increase of export of soya. Today we are talking of the little maize we exported to Tanzania and DRC and Kenya. We start complaining that we've run out of maize. That is immoral. Me, where I am here, Madam Speaker, thank God I'm in that parliament, at Pan-African Parliament. We look at each country should have, if Zambia's got a problem, Zimbabwe should help us. If Congo's got a problem, we should help them. That does not mean that we should be crying that we sold our maize. But the problem is we are not producing enough. Because this is the advantage we would have taken as a country to see to it that, oh, we have got capacity to do this. Let's increase our production. We are talking, Madam Speaker, today of irrigation. Minister Agriculture, every day when he comes here, he talks about mechanization. When you ask about mechanization, is a 1 hectare, 2 hectare, 5 hectares mechanization? We should move out from this. Madam Speaker, ZNH today, they have got bigger farms, which needs to do mechanization. We need to do damming so that we can increase and pay out. We are not going to sustain our country with borrowing, with debt. It's not practical. Madam Speaker, let me ask the Minister that still, I have the solution to the debts we have. Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. I leave the space for others. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Member for Lunte.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I would like to appreciate my honorable colleague, Honorable Chatila, for moving this motion, and also Honorable Mavumba, who seconded it. If you allow me, let me adopt 100% of the submission from the Honorable MP for Kalabo Central and the young man, Honorable MP from Mpika Central. I also want to adopt one expression from Honorable Anakoka, MP for Luena, where he said, because people in the past, or government in the past borrowed, this is why the current government is borrowing in order to pay. Madam Speaker, if you had time to look at the supplementary budget, you will note from page 8 how the minister tabulated the revenue. And part of that, in fact, the last listing there is financing. This is the borrowing we are talking about. But inside there, you will see 17 billion, where the minister is saying these are savings from the 2024 budget, from various lines in the 2024 budget. And I want to put it to the minister that, Honorable Minister, if we already appropriated this 17 billion, why are you bringing it again for appropriation? This is double counting, and it should be removed from the number. Therefore, this supplementary budget of 41.9 billion should be less by 17 billion. There is a serious double counting. However, going to the borrowing, which is the subject of today, I think for me, I don't want to be the one to stop you from borrowing. A lot of people have spoken. They've given you ideas in terms of where the money can come from. And I'm sure you and your ministry have thought about all these ideas. And the best you have found is to borrow. Therefore, I will support you to borrow, Honorable Minister. But be consistent in your expressions.
Order. As the time is 16:40 hours, I suspend business for 20 minutes for a health break.
Still watching Parliament television, the House has gone on a 20 minutes health break. And on the floor of the House, just before the break, was Lunte Member of Parliament, Mr. Kafaya Mutotwe, who was adding his voice to the motion that has been moved by Momba Member of Parliament, Mr. Chatila. And this is a motion to seek the House that they adopt the report of the Planning and Budgeting Committee on the consideration of the 2024 Annual Borrowing Plan amendment for the third session of the 13th National Assembly, laid on the table of the House on Friday, 5th July 2024. And this motion was seconded by Mr. David Mavumba, Mwense, Member of Parliament.
Right, it's time now to have a brief look at business that has been considered on the floor of the House starting at 14:30 hours. Madam Speaker did make two announcements. He did recognize the presence in the public gallery of pupils and teachers from St. Columba's Presbyterian School in Rhodes Park and pupils and teachers from Wisdom Wood School in Kutalala, Lusaka District. And so on behalf of the National Assembly of Zambia, Madam Speaker, we welcome the visitors in our midst.
And earlier on, we also heard the Minister of Health render a ministerial statement on the implementation of the National Health Insurance Scheme. So far, that has been business of the House that has been discussed from the time the House started sitting at 14:30 hours. And just now, we take a break and we come back just before 17 hours.
The admission to the inner bar highlights valuable contributions to the legal profession and tireless efforts of upholding the principles of justice and fairness within the Zambian judicial system. It is for this reason that 5 senior lawyers who have distinguished themselves in the practice of the law in the country were admitted to the inner bar on